Designing your courses can be both exciting and overwhelming. Today, let me give you some tools to help the experience be both effective and efficient. It's important for both you and your students to know the goal of your class. Point A is where you hope all of your students already are. What do you hope they already know? What competencies should they already have before beginning your class? Point B is where you hope your students are at the end of your class. What should they know? What should they be able to do at that point? Your class is everything that happens in between. Know the end from the beginning. Are you going to end your class with a big project, a paper, a test? Does everything that you do throughout the class prepare for them for that big final assessment? Does that final assessment really tell you whether or not they reached point B, or is there a better way? Unfortunately, not every student is at point A when you start the class. So what are you going to do about the students who aren't really where they should be? Are you just going to trudge on and hope they figure out a way to catch themselves up? Or is there a way to build some prerequisites into your course to help them catch up to A without pulling the rest of the students back, and yet in the end help everyone to reach point B? In Comp 2, we hope that at point A, students already have the grammar skills that they need to move forward. But that's not always true. So many students struggle with grammar, and so many teachers debate whether or not we should have to teach grammar by Comp 2. Well, how can we catch up the students who are not at point A and still help them get to point B like everyone else? This is an example of a Comp 2 course. Really, most of the class is based around the development, research, and critical thinking. That's where they're going to write their essays. But they won't do well on their essays if they don't have skills in grammar first. So here is a tab for grammar, a prerequisite for grammar. When students click on this, they have a pretest and a folder. They can take the pretest, and if they score high enough, they jump to the post-test, and they can test out and move on in the class. However, if students do not test high enough, they have to complete everything in the folder. The folder is there even if they don't take the pretest, in case they're not comfortable taking the pretest. So they could go through all of the folders instead if they know that they're not ready. It's also there for reference during the rest of the class if they need it. When they open this folder, they'll find several different categories of grammar skills. In each one, they'll be faced first with a pretest. If they can master that individual skill, they can jump right to the post-test and test out of that category and move on to another. However, if they don't pass with a high enough score, then they have to do a lot of work to get through it. In this course, everything moves from the bottom to the top, so that what they work on will be at the top. And everything is using an adaptive release, so that one thing has to be done before the next thing is available. After the pretest, if they do not score an 85 or above, they have to watch a couple of videos, which may be enough to get them to the point they need to be. So they can then take the intermediate test. The intermediate test is based on the same pool of questions as the pretest. They again have the chance to test out and go directly to the post-test. But if they score too low, they'll have a lot of exercises to do until they get to a second intermediate test. The second intermediate test has to be passed with a 90 or above before they can move on to the post-test. Once they reach the post-test, they can take it, and by this point they should be able to pass it because it's based on the same pool of questions as the intermediate tests were. Here they'll be finished with the post-test and can move on to another folder. These can be gone through as quickly or as slowly as the student is able to gain competency in these. This is a competency-based prerequisite that allows them to gain the skills that they need before they complete the main part of the course. Now that we've established point A and point B and what they are, what are the big steps that they have to take to get from point A to point B? Figure out 3 or 4 main steps that it will take to get there. Then break them down even further. This will give you your main stepping stone type assessments, as well as the lectures, activities, and minor assessments that it will take to get your class really all the way to point B. In face-to-face classes, we tend to be very repetitive and use a lot of demonstration. We use visual demonstrations, we give a lot of examples, we use a lot of steps to make sure that we're slowly walking our students towards the goal. But in online classes, we seem to change our expectation. We condense 3 or 4 steps into 1 step and expect them to jump higher. Online students need the same guidance. They need the same small steps. Don't hesitate to use a variety of tools and activities. Typically, what takes 50 minutes or more in a face-to-face class only takes 20 to 30 minutes to present in an online class. So you have plenty of time to offer other activities to your students. Remember, you should still spend the same amount of time in course engagement with your students. So students in an online class should be engaged with the content material for 3 hours a week at least, and that does not count homework. Remember, the purpose of your class is not for your students to put a check mark on their to-do list. It's for them to gain knowledge and skills, for them to feel accomplished and capable. All of the classes are capable of this, whether online, blended, or face-to-face, but it's our job to make sure that is the outcome.